Hey, what's going on guys, Floriiss here bringing you another Crypt of the NecroDancer Boss Guide video. In this episode we're taking a look at the final boss on the list, which is the Golden Lute. The Golden Lute is a story related boss in Crypt of the NecroDancer. Players can only encounter this boss when playing this area, and the boss will only appear after the finals run has been cleared. Once you enter the room, you will encounter the Golden Lute alongside with two other enemies. In the middle of the room there are two bounce traps located. These bounce traps do have a purpose, as they will aid the player during combat. The bounce traps can either be used when fighting off the boss or the knights. When fighting off the Golden Lute, you can use the bounce traps to align yourself with its head. This is in particular useful during the stage where the boss moves faster. As for the knights, it might happen to you that there's this really awkward gap between yourself and the knight. When this happens, it's really difficult to eliminate the knight. By using a bounce trap, you can stay on the same spot and let the knight come towards you. This way you can take out the knight without too much effort. Those are the main reasons why those bounce pads are there in the first place. The Golden Lute starts off with a total of 10 hurt containers, moves once every 2 beats, and his weak spot is his head. Once you attack the head, it gets confused. Once the boss is confused, it will start to move every beat. During this time, it's a lot riskier to get near the boss, although there's a payoff. When players manage to hit the boss during the confusion effect, thus when the boss is moving a lot faster, the damage output will be tripled. That being said, damage items don't have any effect on the boss. Despite having a strong build with multiple damage boost related items, player will always deal 1 damage by default when attacking the boss and 3 damage when it's confused. This is probably a good thing, otherwise you will be capable of instantly killing the boss, and that will probably be a little bit too overpowered. Speaking of overpowered, throughout the fight there's 3 types of events that can happen. These events will make your time around the boss fight a lot harder. The first event is that the player gets confused. The second event is the summoning of 2 dragons, a red dragon and a green dragon. The third and final event that can happen is a fireball barrage. Every wall pick on the walls in the room will shoot a fireball once at a time, starting from the top of the screen all the way to the bottom. As for most of the fight, it's basically a game of hitting the boss on its head and dodging any incoming attacks. Once the player successfully manages to dodge every attack and eliminate the boss, the fight will be over. Alright, moving on to the strategies. When it comes down to the Golden Lute boss fight, there's going to be 2 different strategies that you can use. The first strategy is going to be the quick kill strategy, and the second strategy is going to be the shield strategy. Once again, it is recommended that you use one of the strategies as often as possible, as they really make your time a lot easier on this boss. So yeah, let's take a look at both of the strategies. The first strategy that we're going to take a look at is the quick kill strategy. Believe it or not, but the Golden Lute can actually be quickly eliminated. That being said, the quick kill strategy is probably the most confusing strategy in the entire game. Once you understand how the strategy works, it's not that bad, although when looking at the strategy for the first time, you're probably guessing what in the world is going on right now. Basically how the quick kill strategy works is that we're going to attack the boss while being confused. So we start off the fight by hitting the boss, from there on we end up being confused and we keep on hitting the boss while being confused. Eventually the confuse effect will wear off, and from here on we have to make a few more hits on the boss to finish him off. Basically it's going from regular inputs to reversed inputs to regular inputs again. In all honesty, it's not that bad, although it really comes down to practice, and practicing is what we're going to do. So let's take a closer look at this strategy. First off, I'll show you guys the strategy in its full extent to give you guys a better idea of what the strategy looks like, and from there on we'll break down the strategy into smaller steps. So this is what the quick kill strategy looks like. Alright, so let's break the strategy down into smaller steps. First things first, you want to start off the fight by entering through the middle doorway and make your way towards the boss. The first thing that you want to do is to hit the boss on its head. Now, there's a few things to take note of here. First of all, you want to make sure that you stand exactly in the middle of the boss. The boss is a total of 3 tiles wide, and you want to stand exactly in the middle row. This is also the reason why we enter the fight through the middle doorway, as this way we will automatically end up standing exactly in the middle of the boss. Secondly, it should be noted that hitting the head is not as straightforward as it seems. The Golden Lute's head can be located on several positions. First off, his head can be located on top of his body. Secondly, his head can be located near the side of his body. And thirdly, his head can be located in front of his body. For this strategy, we want to make sure that from the moment that we hit the head, it's either positioned on top of the body or on the side of the body. If we end up hitting the head while it's in front of the body, the head will automatically back up and that is going to ruin the strategy. Once you're standing in front of the boss, in the exact middle to be precise, and his head is either located on top of the body or near the side of the body, it's time to execute the strategy. The first hit is going to be on the head. As a result, the head will move away from the player towards an unreachable position. This time around, we want to hit the body. Even though hitting the body doesn't do any damage, we want to hit it regardless, as this way we don't have to move away from the boss. Once you hit the body, the head will come back, and at this point we want to hit the head another time. Now, this is the part where it gets tricky. At this point, you will be confused. The confusion effect lasts for a total of 8 beats and will be active from the moment that you hit the head a second time. During those 8 beats, you want to keep on hitting the boss despite the fact that you're confused. This means that from now on, every hit has to be reversed. What usually happens during this time is that the boss backs up all the way towards the back of the room. During this time, you want to chase him down. This means that you want to go upwards, although since you're confused, it means that you need to press downwards. When the boss reaches the far back of the room, you want to hit his head again. At this point, it's basically repeating the steps. First, you hit his head, and from there on, the head will move away. This means that you want to hit his body again. Afterwards, the head will come back and you can hit it another time. When attacking the boss, there's going to be 2 mini bosses that spawn in. These are a red dragon and a green dragon. Fortunately, we can simply ignore them and continue with the strategy. This is because we should be able to kill the boss before the dragons can reach us. By killing the boss, every other enemy in the room disappears, including the dragons, therefore you can simply ignore them. Once the confusion effect wears off, players will immediately have to switch over to regular inputs again. The first regular hit is always going to be a hit on his head again. The second regular input is always going to be backwards, so pressing down, and this is because at this point the Golden Lute is about to move forward. By taking a step backwards you will dodge his attack. At this point you want to hit his body again and finally his head to finish the Golden Lute off. Once you finish off the boss, make sure that you keep on walking upwards for the entire time. This way you will dodge the fireball barrage that is coming in. Now, you're probably wondering how in the world are we going to keep track of all of this? That is a fair question, we'll get to that part in a bit, but first let us make a summary of everything that has been explained so far. The quick kill strategy starts off with a total of 3 regular inputs. From here on, you want to make sure that you make 7 reversed inputs. When the confusion effect is over, immediately use regular inputs again. The first hit is always going to be on the boss's head. The second input is a step back, so moving downwards. From here on, hit the body one more time, followed up by the head, and the boss will be defeated. Make sure to keep on walking forward in a straight line towards the exit, as otherwise you will be killed by the fireball barrage. Now, one of the best ways to keep track of all of this is by counting out loud. Counting out loud really helps when it comes down to the strategy. Basically, the first 3 hits you want to count to 3, so 1, 2, 3. And once you get confused, you want to start off from scratch again. This makes it easier to keep track of everything. From here on, you can count again, and for each input you make, so 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. Up until counting to number 7, the inputs are reversed. At number 8, the inputs become regular. Because of this, it's highly recommended that you do something with the number 7. You can count the numbers like you normally would, but make the 7, the number 7, really loud or something. By putting more emphasis on the number 7, you can remind yourself that the next number, the number 8, is going to be a regular hit again. This certainly can aid you in keeping track of everything. At number 8, you want to hit the boss on his head again, and this time it's a regular hit. After number 8, it's recommended to simply stop counting. This is another way to keep track of things, as by not counting you will instantly remember that you have to make a step backwards. Once being out of confusion, the first hit is always going to be a regular hit on the head, and the next input is going to be a step backwards. Making a sudden stop in the counting really helps to remember that part as well. After the sudden stop, you can start counting from scratch again. There's not really a purpose on this, but it might help you to stay on the beat. From here on, it's simply a matter of finishing off the boss with regular inputs. So here's an example of what the quick kill strategy looks like by counting out loud. 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. 1, 2, 3. As confusing as this all might sound, it's really not that bad after some practice. Before we move on to the next strategy, there's one important thing to mention. The quick kill strategy does not always work 100% of the time. There's actually two types of enemies that can interfere with this strategy, and these are the knights and the dragons. Whenever you enter the room, there's always going to be two random enemies that will spawn. These enemies will usually move towards the middle of the room. By doing so, the enemies will end up standing behind the boss. That is a good sign, as when you're executing the strategy and the enemies are standing behind the boss, they will actually get crushed by the boss. However, there's also a possibility that one or more knights can spawn at the beginning of the fight. Whenever a knight spawns, there's two things that can happen. Either the knight will end up behind the boss. When this happens, there's nothing to worry about and you can simply execute the strategy. Or the knight doesn't end up behind the boss, but instead moves alongside the boss. When this happens, it's not possible to execute the strategy, as the knight will simply attack you. If you end up having a knight spawn, there's not much you can do. Unfortunately, in that case you will have to make a change of plans. When this happens, it's recommended that you take out the knights first and from there on make your way to the back of the room and take out the coffins. Once every enemy has been dealt with, make your way towards the middle of the room and attempt to execute the quick kill strategy. Be warned though that the timing of the events is probably messed up at this point, so there might be a chance of this not working out. Moreover, it should be mentioned that the knights are not the only enemies that can interfere with the strategies, but the dragons can interfere with the strategy as well. Remember when the dragons spawn midway during the strategy? Well, usually this is not a problem. However, there are some really rare occasions where one of the dragons is able to reach you before you can kill the boss. This barely ever happens and this chance is very small, but it's still there. When this happens, you will usually get hit. Fortunately, you can still finish the strategy if you have a potion. This way you can take one hit and still finish off the boss before you get hit a second time. Moving on to the second strategy is the shield strategy. The shield strategy is by far the best strategy to use when it comes down to the golden lute boss fight, as this basically gives you a free win. The shield strategy can either be executed by using a shield spell, a shield scroll or a ring of shielding. Special thanks to player Calvando for pointing out how this strategy works. Basically what you want to do is to walk up to the boss and activate your shield. From here on simply keep on hitting the boss until the boss is defeated. As you can see in this clip, I messed up a few of my inputs but still managed to kill the golden lute in the end. By using the shield strategy you should have plenty of time and can even afford some mistakes. Two quick things to take note of here. First and foremost, it should be noted that the shield spell isn't much effective on its own. The shield spell only lasts for a total of 8 beats. As we know, it takes more than 8 beats to take out the boss. Players are able to extend this time by either equipping a ring of mana or a ring of wonder. Without these rings, it's not recommended to use the shield spell on the golden lute, as you more than likely will get hit. As for the shield scroll and for the ring of shielding, this shouldn't be an issue. Both of these items cast a greater shield which lasts for a total of 20 beats. This is more than enough time to safely take out the boss. Finally, it should be mentioned that the shield doesn't protect players from the confusion effect. When you activate the shield and start to attack the boss, you will get confused. During this time, you will have to make reversed inputs in order to continue attacking the boss, a bit similar to the quick kill strategy that has been explained previously on. And that is everything you need to know about the golden lute boss fight. Hopefully this guide wasn't too confusing. I've tried my best to explain the strategies as clear as possible, but then again the golden lute quick kill strategy is more than likely one of the most confusing strategies in the game. It's pretty difficult to explain and it really comes down to practice, so keep practicing and I'm pretty sure you'll get it down in no time. If there's still a strategy that you're aware of but has not been covered in this guide yet, feel free to leave a comment down below, as not only am I curious to see what this strategy is about, but also it might help out other players who are trying to get better at this particular boss fight. Thank you guys for watching. This was the final Crypt of the NecroDancer Boss Guide video. We've been through all of the 8 boss fights in the game, so pretty much everything has been covered by now. I hope the videos have been helpful and I wish you guys the best of luck on beating those bosses. My name is Floriiss and I'm out. Peace.